So I'd like to welcome all of you to our Great Debate 9. My name is Michael Langenbrunner. I'm president of the UC Yale Group. And I'm very happy to say that this is our 9th installment of our semesterly annual Great Debate. And I'd just like to say thank you to all of our great debaters that we have here today representing their clubs. We have Young Democratic Socialists of America down here at the end. We have Young Americans for Liberty right here. Next, we have our college Republicans. And last but certainly not least, we have our UC Democrats. I'd like to thank you all for coming out. I know, 2 hours for a debate, it's kind of a long time, but in reality, 2 hours isn't that much. So it's going to be a great time tonight. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to turn you over to your moderator for the night, Mr. Garrettson Meyer.
Hello all. Thank you very much for coming to attend. We're going to start off with opening statements of 45 seconds each, and we'll begin with the UC Democrats.
All right, so we are the UC Democrats. We believe that the government can and should play a greater involvement in securing that people are free, that people have a fair life, and that people have equal opportunity in the United States. No one is looking for equal outcome. We are looking for equal opportunity. And we believe that the best way to guarantee that is that basic services that everyone needs in this country, such as healthcare, access to education, that those are off the table, that those are provided. We believe that we need to protect basic things such as the environment. We need to heavily invest in our future. And we believe that this is the best way forward for both our country and the world.
I'm Emily Chen, and we're from the Young Democratic Socialists of America. Socialism isn't a scary concept. If you're paying for college or working a couple jobs, a $15 minimum wage might mean that you won't have to skip dinner tonight. That's socialism. If you skip going to the dentist because you can't afford it, Medicare for all might mean you don't see basic health care as a luxury but as a necessity. That's socialism. If you're taking out loans to pay $26,000 out-of-state tuition at UC, debt forgiveness might make it possible for you to start a family and afford a home. That's socialism.
All right, now it's our turn. My name's Jason. This is Raja. We're representing the UC College Republicans. And then, short and sweet, we believe in limited government, states' rights, and free market solutions to our country's problems.
Hey everybody, my name is Julie Spring. This is Zoe Lee. We are here representing Young Americans for Liberty. The key term there is liberty. That's what we believe in, straight and center. We believe that you have the capacity to make decisions for your life and decide where your life goes. Wherever that takes you, that should be fine with you. But we don't believe that the government should be walking in and telling you what to do with your life because they know how you as an individual should be able to function within your life. So I prefer that we all be free and we live our lives how we want to live and not intrude on others.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to the topics. For each of these, each group has 1 minute. We will go through each of the 4 groups, and then from there, it'll be as groups make me aware that they have something further to say on the topic. So the first topic is healthcare, and the question being, what is the best policy for the nation to adopt on healthcare? And we'll begin with the College Republicans.
Thank you. So essentially our opinion on healthcare is that we want a free market solution to our healthcare issues. We do not believe that our healthcare system is perfect in this country. That's very evident that it is not. But the problem that we're having is government subsidization. We're having issues with the insurance companies. And we do not believe that a universal system, that a single-payer system is going to solve our problems. The United States is responsible for 70% of the world's medical development, medical research. We have the best hospitals in the world. We have the best healthcare system in the world for a reason. And that is the free market. And we believe in expanding that reason broadly to this sector of our economy, to improve drug prices, to improve people's access to health care. When hospitals are able to compete, when doctors are able to compete, that's when prices go down, and that's when people get the care that they need.
So how can any American possibly be free if they become bankrupt due to sky-high medical bills? How can they be free if they must ration every penny that they have in order to buy a vial of insulin in order to live? Healthcare must be viewed as a basic human right because it's every human's basic need. The United States, we have one of the worst, highly bureaucratic and wasteful systems in the entire world. The United States must join the rest of the industrialized countries to implement a single-payer healthcare system, such as Medicare for All, that stops prioritizing greed and profit over people's livelihoods.
We here at Yale believe in the free market system to fix our healthcare as well. This values the value of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If the government is telling you that you have to be on Medicaid, a system that only pays for 90% of hospital costs, how are we going to have an efficient hospital system? There have been many doctors, including the YouTuber ZDoggMD, who is in fact a licensed MD, who said that if we implement Medicaid for all system, many hospitals in the US would be run out of business. Doctors would stop becoming doctors because they would not have enough pay to keep that as a livelihood. And we additionally would like to have reform of the AMA system to stop limiting the amount of people who can get accepted into medical school. The United States must join every other major country in guaranteeing healthcare as a right by implementing Medicare for all. Here in America, we pay more for healthcare compared to every other developed country in the world. Meanwhile, people are dying. Healthcare costs are the #1 cause of bankruptcy. Insulin is being rationed, and 13% of Americans are still uninsured. That's more than 30 million Americans. Healthcare isn't something that can just be subject to the whims of the free market. It's life or death. If someone is dying, they don't have the leverage to just walk away from a hospital or choose to negotiate down prices before an emergency surgery. We believe that no one should be dying in the United States, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, because they are uninsured or underinsured. We believe that every American should be able to see the doctors that they want, receive quality care, afford prescription drugs, and not just have to pay premiums and deductibles.
With that, I'll open it up to the floor if you'd like in next on that. Young Americans for Liberty.
So firstly, I would like to respond to the socialist group by saying that healthcare is not a right, it is a service provided from one person to another. And although it is a necessary thing for many people to have, you have no right to demand a service from one person to yourself, such as you don't have the right to go onto a farmer's land and demand the food that they've grown.
Yeah, I would like to add on to what Yao was saying about healthcare not being a right but being a service. We need lots of things to survive: bread, water, and all of those things are open to free market solutions. You don't have an insurance policy every time you want to go to Kroger and get food. You go to Kroger and the market provides the food, the market lowers the prices. And then healthcare is a necessary thing that we have to have. And to respond to the socialist point that people are dying in our country, people are dying in every country, but in the United States, we're dying at a much less rate. We're 45% more likely to die in a British hospital than an American hospital. Precisely because we have better care, we have better drugs, we have more research coming out, and we have greater access to the goods and services that people need.
So first of all, about the British system and the quality of care decreasing, we're going to keep all of the same hospitals and all of the same doctors under this Medicare for All system. All that'll change is the insurance. So all of that same quality in the hospitals will remain. Another thing is that healthcare, shopping for healthcare is impossible because demand for it is really irregular and really unpredictable. You really can't choose the body that you're born in, and a lot of the time you're getting surgeries and things in emergency situations where you really don't have the chance to, be subject to the whims of the free market, as I said in my introduction. It's not the same as like a toaster or a shirt. People that need emergency care aren't able to choose whether or not they get a treatment. And sometimes it's even undesirable for them to choose, as in the case of vaccines. So, for that reason, having a free market system for healthcare is just really wouldn't work.
First, I'd like to address the wait times in Canada. So that's a common misconception about the Canadian system. They prioritize wait times based on the deadliness and the emergency aspect of the healthcare aspect. So if you are coming in to the emergency room, for example, with a extremely emergent injury, like you were in a car accident, then you're going to be prioritized over someone who is simply feeling a little bit under the weather, or it has a more minor, less emergent healthcare need. Furthermore, about the concept of choice, so if you are looking for healthcare, your primary choice is going to be about doctors, not about insurance companies. You're not worried about the bureaucracy of it, you're worried about the kind of care you're getting. And under single payer, you're able to have more choice about the doctors that you're going to be going to, and you're more free to switch between different medical providers.
The wait times in Canada, it's a statistical fact. The average wait time for a hospital, if you just walk in, you break your arm or something, is about 9 hours as compared to the average in the United States is about 2. The reality is, with single-payer universal systems, fewer and fewer doctors want to be a part of that. There's very little incentive to do it. The government's negotiating for you. They're fixing the prices. You're not able to negotiate the price for your own labor. In the United States, fewer and fewer doctors are even accepting Obamacare patients, for example. The market is smaller there. Doctors already in the United States are vastly overworked. They see thousands of patients. They spend very little of their time with their patients. And then when you compare even that to a system like Canada, where elective screenings, for example, blood tests, MRIs, you can't get those unless you need them.
Young Democrat, Socialist America.
So another point about the choice aspect of it is that you, with choosing what healthcare you're getting, a lot of the time people can't even select an insurer because it's just assigned to them by their employer, which actually does end up trapping people in their jobs because they're so scared of losing healthcare. So what the patient thinks about their insurer is actually in the end irrelevant because it's assigned to them by their employer and their job. So there's a really big also information gap between the buyer, which is the patient, and the seller, which is the insurance company. Because contracts between the providers and then the providers and pharmacies and the insurers completely hide the real cost of the services that you're seeking from you, so you don't actually have the same kind of freedom of choice as you do in a traditional, ideal free market type of, with other goods. So those are some other things where that really limits the idea of choice in a healthcare system.
Young Americans Voted.
So myself personally, I am a libertarian that's on Medicare. Let that sink in for a second. Yes, I am advocating for less government options while I am on Medicare. I am not saying to eradicate public options totally. I am saying that there should be a choice between a public and a private option, and you should not have to pay into the public option if you do not intend on using it later on. The fact that you are required to pay into these systems is a violation of your liberty and of your freedom of choice. Additionally, the constant pumping of money into the healthcare system by the government is the reason why prices are rising. It's just common sense. If you're going to get any amount of money you ask for, why wouldn't you raise the price of different healthcare options? So, something to chew on.
So a useful kind of analogy for this is kind of your local fire department. When there's a fire at your house, fire department comes and puts it out, no questions asked. You don't have the sort of fire prevention plan that covers some rooms and doesn't cover other rooms. You have much more choice when it comes to single payer than you do in our current system, because our current system is dictated by the private insurance companies. With single payer, it's sick health. There's one plan, it's comprehensive. You don't have to pick between various plans, and it's much more simple and restores the patient-doctor relationship rather than having to go through a private health insurance company, which again is all about making money, prioritizing the region that they want.
All right, so I'll have another case study here. LASIK eye surgery, for example. It's an elective surgery. Most insurance companies won't cover it. 10, 15 years ago, when the technology just came out, it cost on average about $20,000 an eye to do. But because it was so expensive and because it was a free market solution, it wasn't an insurance, it wasn't involved with the insurance companies. More and more people went to school and became the type of doctors necessary to do that. Now it costs about $3,000 to $4,000 an eye. 85% of the drugs approved by the FDA since 1988 came from private research and development. A study by Berkeley estimated about 75% of clinical trials came from private funding. When the government's negotiating on your behalf, these things just won't happen. If I have a pen and it costs me $50 to make, and the government's going to tell me that we'll give you $20 for it and you have to sell it, I'm just not going to make pens anymore.
Why do you say?
I think that the issue is more so that the pen costs $50 to make, but right now they're selling it for about $1,000 because people aren't able to see when you talk about LASIK eye surgery, which is an elective procedure, that's different than people that are coming in to an emergency room and to hospitals where they don't have the choice to say, oh no, I'd rather not have this procedure done because without it, they're going to die. Saying that, government's pumping more money into it is creating huge inefficiency. There's a huge amount of waste inherent in the billing and administrative expenses of running an insurance company, with people calling each other back and forth saying, oh, is this going to be insured? No, it's not. Oh, is this going to be insured? Maybe, I don't know. And so you have a huge amount of waste with that. Even a Koch-funded, Koch brother-funded think tank, Mercatus, found that the savings for Medicare for All were estimated to be $2 trillion, and estimates range from 1.8, a conservative estimate, to 5.1 trillion over a 10-year period. Speaking of bureaucratic waste, my personal opinion, and the opinion of many people in this room, I'm sure, is the government is the king of creating waste. Just filing my own Medicaid paperwork, I was told that everything was in order, just to be told that the county department did not send it to the State Department, resulting in at least 2 months of me going back and forth with them trying to get it sorted out. If that's not more wasteful than a normal insurance company, I don't know what it is. As for me, I'd rather have an option where insurance is only necessary in catastrophic times. I would like to be able to go to the doctor's office for a normal physical and pay out of pocket. When the government is just pumping money into the system, as I stated earlier, giving physicians any amount they want, you're never going to be able to afford it.
UC College Republicans?
All right, with the insurance companies, I agree that there should be an option just to be out of pocket. Cut the insurance companies out, get rid of the middleman, just negotiate on your own with the healthcare providers, with the drug companies. With the example of the LASIK eye surgery, let's expand that sort of mentality and that sort of thinking about these problems to the essential treatments. If we saw it happen with things like that with elective surgeries, why does the logic not hold with essential surgeries? Why can we not make those more lucrative, make more doctors invest in that, make more companies invest, bring in more research, and then bring the cost of those things down, and then negotiate on an individual basis with the providers.
Why do you say?
Because when you're saying essentially that people will pay out of pocket for essential care, you're saying that poor people don't deserve access to healthcare and don't deserve to live. You're creating a system where the rich people can afford to protect themselves and to maintain their health, and poor people are just left out to die, which I don't think is. And I think this goes back to the same, analogy that you used with the fire department. Creating a privatized, fire department, for example, would just mean that the poor people have their houses and livelihoods burned down because they can't afford that. There are certain things that the government should provide so that everyone has at least a chance at life, essentially. So.
And we'll finish up this topic with Young Americans for Liberty.
So as I said earlier, I'm not advocating for all government options to be eliminated, so that would be the safe goal for the poor. The poorest of the poor who do not afford to pay out of pocket for a basic physical, once physicals are at a reasonable cost to pay out of pocket, that would be their safe goal. Additionally, one more point I wanted to make about the state of the healthcare system is the cost of medication. The government owns many patents along with many pharmaceutical companies. So the federal government in some capacity co-owns that patent, and that raises the price of many medications. For example, the EpiPen. The EpiPen has been hundreds of dollars historically, and there has not been allowed to have a generic version on the market. When there was a generic version, it was owned by the same company, and it was still $200 for one EpiPen. So we need to have more free market innovation in terms of pharmaceuticals.
And we'll be moving on to the next topic, which will be immigration. So what is the best policy for the nation to adopt on immigration? And we'll begin with Young Democratic Socialists of America.
So we believe that the U.S. must create a dignified path to citizenship for immigrants and those seeking asylum in our country. One that doesn't value human beings solely on how much money they have and how much they can bring to our markets. We also support the expansion of programs like DACA, DAPA, and sanctuary cities, which protect people from the devastation of deportation, potentially ripping mothers away from children and splitting up families. We won't allow racism and xenophobia to seep into our government's handling of immigration, and strongly oppose policies that discriminate against and actually target specific people of color. ICE raids have created a serious threat for communities of color and must be discontinued. We blamed immigrants for many of our problems, but really, when immigrants enter the labor force, they increase the productive capacity of the economy. As it literally says on the Statue of Liberty, give me your tired, your poor, your held masses, yearning to breathe free. Thank you.
Next up, College Republicans.
So we are not against in any way legal immigration. We actually believe with the socialists that we need to simplify our process for entering this country legally. We think right now it's ridiculously too long, with 10 years on average to get your citizenship. But we are completely and totally against illegal immigration, sanctuary cities, or any policy that would facilitate or promulgate that. We are a country with borders and international security question at that point. We cannot be letting people in along our southern border, and I can comment on that later with some of the certain things going on there. There's a difference between coming here for better opportunities and seeking political refuge. Seeking political asylum is an international right that's recognized by international law, but only to the nearest safe country. And with these massive groups of people coming in our southern borders, it's not the case.
UC Dennis.
So immigration is a broad and complex topic, many layers to it, but broadly issues regarding the legal immigration system, such as country immigrant percent caps and backlog of applications, are the root of many problems regarding immigration today. That's including illegal immigration. Instead of being reactive, we must be proactive in terms of our relations with other countries and their domestic issues. There must be reforms on the application process, including but not limited to set country immigrant caps, the clarification of what constitutes visas, and the processes of immigration courts.
And Young Americans for Liberty.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be saying anything too different from what I've been hearing, but we're basically saying that anyone who is willing to come to this country and sacrifice their life and come miles to get here, we want those people in this country because they're willing to work for what they want. That is the American ideal. Those are the kind of people that make this country go. That's what we want. Of course, we also don't want violent criminals coming in, but there's a way to check on that. There's a way to do that. Our process is wholly inadequate to address the issues that we're having on the southern border, just in immigration in general. And there's a way to fix that. There could be open work visas. It's a great way to start getting after that, allowing people to come here and work and send money back to the countries that they were suffering in, so that they can start improving not just their own life, but the lives that are in those countries.
Yeah, and I think that one of the main issues is that a lot of people are crossing the border illegally because there's just such a large amount of administrative waste when it comes to processing people that are seeking asylum. Court dates takes weeks, and people are being held in facilities awaiting their court date, or just being released and being told to come back later. If we were to simplify that process and make it more efficient, we would greatly reduce the number of illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants in our country.
UC Democrats.
So I want to build on that. So first of all, I want to go back to what I mentioned with country immigrant percent caps. So there's a cap, 5% on how many immigrants are allowed to enter per country per year. So that means countries like Mexico, India, China are on equal levels as countries like Luxembourg. That is not even remotely equivalent in terms of population and the amount of immigrants that try to come in from these countries. So part of this backlog and why the process takes so long is because there are simply too many. And we are adjusting for the factors that involve why there are so many people coming from these countries. And so in order to start de-incentivizing illegal immigration, you have to incentivize the legal process. And it taking so long, especially if you feel your life is in danger, is just going to fuel illegal immigration.
I think there are definite points to that. As we said earlier, that our immigration policies do need to be streamlined and improved in many ways. It should not take 10 years to get citizenship status, But it also goes to the fact that the border security and our border facilities on our southern border, which is where the majority of our illegal immigration is taking place, are woefully inadequate to deal with the massive surges in people coming up, which is why our border detention facilities are overcrowded, which is why the unfortunate policy of catch and release even exists. To comment on family separation, which was brought up in the opening statements, that's standard policy in this country for any crime. If you rob a bank with a kid in your car, you're going to be separated. And then when you have things like human trafficking and criminals on our southern border, you can either detain these people and verify their identity and make sure that these kids aren't being trafficked, or you can allow these sorts of crimes to continue, which cannot happen.
We'll go back to you,
So there was a 2018 report from the Department of Homeland Security about border security, and specifically from 2006 to 2017, there was a 75% decrease in unlawful entries nationwide. From 2006 to 2017, there was a 95% decrease in southwestern border undetected unlawful entries. Where the majority of illegal immigrants come from is overstayed visas, and where the majority of these immigrants come from is by plane. Mobilizing the southern border is not the answer to illegal immigration. that is a tiny factor in the overall scheme of this. What that says, if it's people overstaying visas, is that there is an issue with the legal process. Again, you have to incentivize the legal process. If these people are there for their families and for their jobs, they can't just wait for years and years and years. And so, for that reason, they turn to illegal methods of overstaying visas instead of going through the absurdly long lines in the legal process.
So we just want to emphasize that, I think UC Democrats said this as well, but the problem on our southern border is actually much less of a problem than we actually think it is. Over the past few years, we've actually had net negative immigration from the southern border. It's just emphasized by the media that to blame immigrants on problems that we as Americans face every day. It's sad, but it's what happens. And we use inhumane tactics to deport and target people who really aren't really doing any harm to us at all. We've split up thousands of parents for children, and we house children for weeks and weeks whose parents have been taken away in deportation facilities, in housing facilities that literally don't even have basic necessities like toothpaste and toilet paper. We're just advocating for the government to be responsible for these people, even though necessarily they might not contribute as much as we think they would, but.
Young Americans for Liberty.
So as we said before, we support open work visas. People who want to come and work in this country should be able to. Our main issue is with people abusing asylum. As a Republican stated earlier, people in countries that are war-torn or poverty-stricken, such as Venezuela right now, they're seeking to go to other countries to escape their problems in their home country, but they're walking through so many other countries to get to the U.S. And if they're really just trying to escape the poverty-stricken areas, they should be able to go to any of those countries in between their own in the U.S. They should not be taking advantage of the U.S. asylum system. Additionally, people on asylum can also get government benefits, and that should not be. So we should crack down on the people who are coming in and trying to claim asylum illegally.
In many cases, I want to emphasize that many immigrants or people seeking asylum aren't using us to get what they want. They're using us to live. Many problems that they're fleeing from, war, climate catastrophes, a lot of those things actually we've created here in the U.S. So in our view, it's our responsibility to actually make sure that those people aren't left to just move from one war-torn country to another and actually go somewhere that is secure and that can financially and just sort of socially support them as they try to live their lives in the fullest.
Young Americans for Liberty.
Yes, I agree that the people who are seeking asylum should be taken in and should be taken care of. The issue is that when we say people are taking advantage of it, is what Zoe was pointing to, is that the rule is that you are supposed to stop in the country that is most adequate at when you get there.
Right, like the closest one.
The closest country that is able to handle you. The problem is that they're just skipping over those countries and coming straight to America. So they are abusing that system. That does not mean I don't have empathy for that person. I'm just saying that you should be held to the same standard that we're holding all asylum seekers to. And that is that you stop at the country that is best adequate to handle.
So when it comes to asylum seekers, there's a key difference in motivation between asylum seekers and immigrants. Asylum seekers in general are fleeing. They don't necessarily want to leave their home country, And when it comes to this idea of stopping in the next country, the issue is that this entire region is being plagued by violence, different types of violence, whether it's due to economies collapsing or violence from drug cartels. So, for example, most asylum seekers on the southern side come from Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. But the countries between them and the U.S. are not necessarily very much better. Look at Mexico, that's the main divider between them and the U.S. And they are being completely ravaged by violence. And so the issue isn't necessarily that they don't want to stop, it's that they're not any safer in these countries that they're stopping in.
To comment on that, when you look at, I'm going to use the caravans. It was a recent example in the media. When you look at these caravans coming up from Honduras and places like these, they were offered very explicitly asylum in Mexico. And there are regions in Mexico that the government could have taken them in and protected them. And their situation would have been dramatically improved as compared to their home countries. But when you look at what actually happened, is these people are refusing asylum. And then when the Mexicans try and stop them from entering their country, they have military law, they have riot police lines on their southern border on the bridge between their country and the neighboring country. And these caravans are directly assaulting these government forces, and you have outright battles on their way from the south up to our southern border, and then again when they get here. There are countries that they can go in between the United States and their home countries where they can be offered asylum, or they could go to places like Brazil or whatnot. Countries that are offering asylum that can take them in, and we've already established that our facilities are not able to handle the massive amounts of people we have arriving here. And if we do let them in, we don't have the facilities to house them and take care of them.
Hey,
Young Americans for Liberty.
we'll ride. Let's go. Let's see. So yeah, I mean, that's the general sense of it. Is that if you are seeking asylum, of course we have compassion and empathy for you, but also you have to understand. Let's not act like people who are in these dire straits aren't making a choice of what country they want to go to. That they just because that country is a little better, I could go there, but I want to go to the land of the free. I want to go to the home of the brave. That's where I want to go. I want to go to America. That's the place I heard about. Those are the people that I know. That's where I want to go. But that is not how this works. We have a rule set in place because we are not in the space that we can adequately handle all these people. We would love to be able to take in as many people as we can, but we are not in the space to do that. So it is not to look at us and say, bad America, take all those people, take all those millions of people at your border, clamoring and fighting to come into your country, when we aren't able to do it. So you're putting this weight on us for something that we can't handle and that we cannot control. When they have the option of going to other countries and they're abusing that, even though we still have empathy.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that it's ridiculous to say that we don't have the resources to support these people, when actually the government projects that the economy will add 9.8 million jobs in America between 2014 and 2024. This is a little bit old, but I think still valid. The labor force will only grow by 7.9 million. So actually, immigration will be the #1 driving force of population increase in America. If we actually need them to fill our jobs that are going to go just literally completely unfilled. For example, literally half of farm workers have no work authorization, aka they're undocumented immigrants. We need them. They literally put food on our tables. And that's that.
Thank you.
I'll address both those points. To go back to the caravans very briefly, not only are they abusing the asylum system, in many cases they themselves are being taken advantage of. There are reports coming out of these countries in Latin America, and there are videos coming out of Mexico and other countries. You have NGOs and various other factions that are going down into these countries. They are literally paying these people. There are videos of people being handed money and shoveled on the buses. If they were actually walking here and legitimately wanted asylum, it would have taken them 2 months to get here, and it took them 2 weeks. They're being bussed up, they're being put on trains, and then the people doing that know that we can't take them, that they're going to be in just as bad, if not worse, a situation when they get here, yet they're still being brought here. So I think there's a difference between these groups of legal immigrants coming up and then work visas, and then people coming here legitimately within our legal system seeking to work.
We'll go YDSA to respond to that, and then to YAL.
I mean, I think it's kind of horrifying that this whole discussion for the past minute has been about this caravan, which is essentially has been on the news as a type of anti-immigrant propaganda tool. The majority of asylum seekers aren't over here being bussed over. Their parents with children, their families fleeing violence, they're seeking, refuge in our country. And to imply that the majority of people are being bussed here as some political ploy is absolutely ridiculous. No one wants to leave their country of origin. My parents had to flee their country of origin, and I can assure you that had they been able to stay, they would have done so, because it is incredibly difficult to leave everything that you've known and move to a country where you know no one and where you have nothing. So to imply that these people are just some kind of political tool instead of acknowledging the reality of who is coming in and seeking asylum in our country, I think that's ridiculous and unacceptable.
So I wanted to tie together several points that I've heard in the last few minutes. Firstly, the claim that immigration is needed for our labor force, and we wholeheartedly agree with that. However, most of the people coming in through the southern border are not going to be qualified for the jobs that we need filled. That's just the hard truth. As much as we want to be able to take these people in, we're already struggling with the amount of people at our border. We have the places to contain these people, and they're already overflowing, and they're being treated inhumanely sometimes. And honestly, it's not good what we already have, and we're encouraging more people coming in and overflowing the system. Every single group just in the last few minutes said that government has too much waste in this area. It's not going in the most straightforward manner. Why would we convolute the system even more when it comes to that?
YDSA?
Well, I think the idea with that is that we're proposing that we actually reform the system so that we can take in more asylum seekers and more people. When we're mentioning all this government waste and all this the reason that we're treating them so inhumanely being because of the kind of inefficiency, we're saying, why don't we simplify that process so we can actually take more people in? I think that's where we're coming from.
Was there someone who wants it next? College Club?
I would agree that to the point our system definitely needs to be revised so that if there is legitimate need for political asylum, because these countries are in a very bad situation, that we need to be able to accommodate that. But the answer in the immediate sense is not just to keep taking people in and hope that the system eventually reforms. We already have so many people here that we can't even count them. The last estimate is about 10 years old, and they estimated between 20 and 30 million illegal immigrants may be here, and they don't know because we don't know where they are. And unfortunately, local law enforcement jurisdictions are not cooperating with the federal government to be able to identify these people. So as long as our border facilities are so inadequate and we cannot house these people, the answer is not to continue to incentivize them to continue to come up and continue to make a trip that is extremely painful. And we do have absolute sympathy for the people crossing Mexico and coming up. Estimated 30% of the women that make that trip are raped or otherwise sexually assaulted. They are being taken advantage of the entire way up. And we cannot continue to incentivize that and allow more people to continue to do that and continue to put themselves in harm's way.
I will finish up this topic.
If we're talking about reforming the system, I don't think we disagree. I think that the issue that we're disagreeing on is that we should just let more people in and then hope as we work to get it reformed. I think that's just going to elongate suffering for those people who are trying to come to this country. If we are not able to adequately and sufficiently house, take care of and provide for those people, their suffering will just add on to the homeless people that we see in all these major cities in our country already. And I don't think we want to see that. I don't want to see people come and suffer and fight so hard to get here, and then get here, and then suffer even more. And now that they're here, now they really have nowhere to go because they've already made it to the better place, and now they're still suffering. I think that is not a good way to rectify this situation. I think the best way to do it is to make sure that we have the resources in place to address the issue that we're having before we start just letting in more people. Letting in more people is not an adequate adjustment.
And with that, we'll move to the third and final topic, minimum wage. So what is the best policy for the nation to adopt on minimum wage? And we'll begin that topic with Young Democratic Socialists of America.
Thank you. So as Democratic Socialists, we believe that the government should adopt a policy of gradually raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and then resuming the policy of increasing wages with inflation, which was the norm before the Reagan era. To us, it's absurd that minimum wage is even a political issue at all because every other developed country with a minimum wage has a commission or formula that evaluates and redetermines it every year or two. Nearly all of them involving economic experts instead of politicians paid off by big business. Over the past 40 years, the cost of living has increased significantly while wages stayed relatively flat. Meanwhile, CEOs are paid 1,000 times more than they were in 1978. The rich get richer and costs continue to rise, while hardworking people are left unable to afford basic necessities. At this point, economic growth in this country is reserved only for the rich, and it's absolutely unsustainable to expect our economy to thrive if our workers are left behind. We must standardize wages to make sure that the opportunities are equal across state lines. People who work over 40 hours a week should not have to live under the poverty line.
One more thing. Okay, folks. I'm going to give you a quick trigger warning. Just be ready. These are quotes from 1931 when minimum wage came about. You will not think that a Southern man is more than human if he smiles over the fact of your reaction to that real problem you are confronted with in any community with a superabundance for large aggregation of Negro labor. It is, second quote, it is much better to enact minimum wage law even if it deprives these unfortunates of work. Better that the state should support the inefficient wholly and prevent the multiplication of the breed that is then subsidize incompetence and unthrift, enabling them to bring forth more of their kind. So if you don't pick up what's happening here, they're talking about that they want to bring about minimum wage so that they can, because their jobs are being taken by black workers. Now, what I'm not saying is that YMCA and people who are supporting minimum wage their intention is racism. But what I am saying is that I think they'll pick up on their impact is the same. That the people who they are trying to help are going to be hurt by the very laws and rules that they are trying to implement. That the minorities that they are trying to help will be impacted negatively by minimum wage. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
It is time that we recognize the dignity of all work in the United States of America. Americans cannot keep working for inadequate wages, and this means all Americans. If the minimum wage had kept up with inflation and worker productivity, it would be over $26 an hour today, and if it had kept up with the gains of the wealthiest 1% in the United States, it would be over $28. Wages have been stagnant for decades now, and this must end. The United States, in each state, we must have what is acceptable to be a livable wage. Obviously, rural Ohio is going to require a different amount of minimum wage than, for example, New York City. Costs of rent, costs of housing, transportation, all have exponentially grown in the United States, while workers have not seen their wages rise, and this is a big problem.
All minimum wage does, there's a constant competition in the market here between skilled and unskilled labor. So the reality of minimum wage, there should be an economic argument, and unfortunately this has been turned into a moral argument with the misguided belief that the wealthy 1% of the business owners go into their back room at the end of the night, they've got a swimming pool full of gold that lifts them around them because of their successful policy over the last 500 years of keeping the minimum wage low. The reality is that there is a finite amount of money that can be spent on employment, and when you artificially raise the minimum wage, that does not cut into the employer's bottom line. That either gets compensated with a reduction in the hours of the staff or a reduction in the number of people hiring. All the minimum wage does in practical effect is block poor people and unskilled people out of the economy and lock them out of the jobs that they need most.
We'll go to YDSA, but quickly before that, guys, after this we will be doing the Q&A, and there is a hyperlink on the bottom of the screen at the front. If you'd like to submit those Q&As so that after this topic you can get those questions answered, please do so. YDSA.
So, with the argument that employers will just, cut jobs or cut hours to make up for the rise in minimum wage, is that workers are already being paid way less than what their market value is worth, and higher wages actually reduce employee turnover and reduce costs of training associated with that kind of turnover. Also, workers that are working 2 or 3 jobs right now to sustain themselves and support their families can reduce their hours, opening up employment opportunities for other people. In 2014, there was a study done on states that raised their minimum wage versus states that didn't. And actually, they found that states that raised their minimum wage experienced more job growth than states that didn't. It was a 0.85% increase compared to a 0.61% increase. This was done by the Center of Economic and Policy Research. So essentially, while you might think that employers will just have to cut into other parts of their business, with a lot of businesses, workers already represent such a small proportion that the increase in minimum wage would be made up.
The reason why we're saying that minimum wage would do damage to a lot of communities is because there's some great examples out there. For one, there's an example in New York, the New York car wash, New York City car washes. And a few years ago, the mayor and the governor said that car washes were exploiting their workers and that they needed to make it $15 an hour. And so they got unions together, they went to work, and they went on a great fight to bring $15 an hour wage. Guess what happened? Almost every small business that was a car wash closed, or they sold their lot to make up for the money that they were losing. And then the big businesses that could afford that $15 minimum wage, they automated and then made more money because other businesses closed. Or if they were a small business and they found a way to make it work, all they did was just automate. So they took the jobs away anyway. So what happens is that either you lose your job or you lose your job. Or if they have money, they just swallow up the smaller competitors. And it eliminates the free market, it eliminates small business, it eliminates that entrepreneurial spirit that makes America thrive and what makes it go. It eliminates that whole process.
My first time talking, but I think with the minimum wage, one thing you have to understand about poverty is that most people aren't in poverty because their wages are low. They're in poverty. The main things that get the person out of poverty is getting a skill and then saving some money. And if you stop someone from saving any money, then they can't get out of poverty. So and the minimum wage doesn't actually address that. And secondly, on the thing about employment rates rising, that's actually kind of misleading because the people who got jobs weren't poor people; they were people like us. Poor people actually got less jobs, and more kids like us got more jobs. So it actually kept the poor even longer.
Why do you say?
So right now, America's federal minimum wage at 38% of the median income is one of the developed world's lowest. And so it comes out to about $15,000 a year of full-time work. So basically, when we raise the minimum wage, people will have more money to spend, and businesses that, rely on consumer spending. And so with this increase in wages, people will be able to participate in the economy. And with 40% of paid workers working more than 40 hours a week, they will have more time freed up. So really, with this increase in spending that will occur, it will actually help a lot of businesses grow.
UC Democrats.
So the current federal minimum wage of $7.25, which has been kept artificially low, it hasn't, I don't believe it's been risen in over a decade now. It's enough to put you below the poverty line. 22 states do not have a minimum wage on the books that's high enough to put a full-time worker above the poverty line. And almost 70% of our nation's GDP is dependent on the purchasing power of its consumers. When working people, or anyone for that matter, doesn't have discretionary income, they can't use it at groceries, they can't use it at restaurants, they can't use it at various stores. When you give companies a more incentive and demand to hire more workers and honestly just expand their business, this puts money back in the economy and this is good for everyone. It doesn't make sense that people at the top are sort of deserving of millions of dollars, and the people at the bottom are not even deserved to get past the day and put food on the table.
Minimum wage does not actually govern how much money a person makes. It only governs how much money a person makes in an hour. We can go for a few more examples. A New York City Hospitality Alliance survey found that 75% of restaurants intended to reduce employee hours, and 53% said that they would eliminate jobs should the minimum wage go up. The Bernie Sanders campaign was forced to cut hours for their campaign staff when he raised his wages. 28 states raised their minimum wages between 2003 and 2007. And there were no traces found of lower poverty associated with these wage hikes. There was just an article on CNN that came out yesterday that Target raised their wages and employees got their hours cut and jobs lost. There's another case study with American Samoa. This happened. They originally did not have a minimum wage requirement, and then that was artificially imposed upon them. 30% of their economy was composed of tuna canning. And when that minimum wage hike came into effect, what happened was that all of the workers just lost their jobs. So their economy completely collapsed and they went into a depression, and they had an unemployment rate of 30% just because the minimum wage hike affected a sector of their economy that comprised 30% of their economy. And so many jobs were lost because it raised it so arbitrarily above the market value of that work that they weren't able to support it.
So I want to go back to your point about poor people not saving their money, and that's why they're poor. Because many of these people can't actually afford to do things like invest in homes that generate money and get passed down, generations and generations, and invest things that Yale and the Republicans love, like investing. They can't even afford to do because they can't put food on the table. Actually, the Department of Housing and Development recommends that a family pay no more than 30% of their income on housing, so they can afford other necessities like food and clothing and transportation and medical care. But they also found that 12 million households pay more than 50% of their annual income on housing. And full-time workers earning the minimum wage can't even afford local fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States.
I don't know what this cost of housing has to do with the minimum wage, but raising the minimum wage is definitely not going to make housing more affordable. I think you have to emphasize that minimum wage doesn't actually do anything about poverty. Like, if you don't let people get some kind of skill, then they're going to stay in poverty. And you have to let them get a skill and then save something so they can get out of poverty. And raising the minimum wage just keeps them at that skill level longer and makes it harder for them to save some money.
But raising the minimum wage would actually help those people gain the skills they need with the increasing cost of education. And you see it with UC's tuition. Having enough money to afford an education is so important for people to gain those skills. And having a higher minimum wage also increases incentives to take jobs, which reduces the need for food subsidies and welfare. And I thought, college Republicans in Yale would love this, that according to the Economic Policy Institute, raising the minimum wage by just a few bucks would cause 1.7 million Americans to no longer rely on public assistance and reduce government expenditures for those things by $7.6 billion. So in that way, it would really help those who are living under the poverty line and can't afford that education that they need, and it would also incentivize people to take those jobs.
So with the poverty cycle, it's a bit of a myth. If you want to reduce housing costs, that's another thing that we can ask the government to stop regulating so much. One of the reasons housing prices are so high is because the government won't allow companies to build houses in certain places because this has to happen. You have to have this type of window, you have to have this type of bathroom, you have to have these kind of lots. Those are the type of things that also impact that. So maybe not raising the minimum wage, but addressing the regulations in housing might be a fair point. And also, when I talked about it impacting communities negatively, one of the communities that it would impact negatively would be community of people who look like me. Young black teens are one of the highest unemployment rates in this country, if not the highest, maybe the highest. But that community would be impacted negatively by this. I don't think anyone has adequately addressed that point, that the very communities that are trying to be helped by this process, by raising the minimum wage, are the very ones who have been hurt throughout history, and were the very ones it was created to hurt.
Raising the minimum wage does not incentivize job growth. There's no jobs there to take. Who is government to say that someone who wants to work for $5 or whatever price they want an hour isn't able to sell the labor for that amount? If you only have $15 to spend on unemployment, you can either hire 3 people who don't have the skills to get another job that can actually gain skills and market them later for $5 an hour, or you can hire 1 person for 15.
And on increasing the wage, making things more affordable, on the housing topic, if you understand housing, a lot of the problems with housing is caused by rent control, zoning, and actually public infrastructure. So land prices are actually set by wages in some cases, and if you rise the wages, if we're going to make the land more expensive, so it's not actually going to make housing cheaper, it's actually going to make it more expensive.
I think when we're talking about artificially raising the minimum wage, we have to remember that the federal minimum wage has actually been artificially kept low at $7.25 an hour for the last 10 years, and due to inflation, it's lost about 16% of its purchasing power. And so the federal minimum wage peaked with its real value in 1968, which would be around $10.85 an hour. And since then, U.S. labor productivity has risen. So if we had been raising the minimum wage to keep it in step with inflation and with average labor productivity, some economists estimate that it would be as high as $26 an hour. So the prices, the wages have been artificially kept low to keep workers powerless and to undervalue their labor. So when it was said that the minimum wage has artificially been kept low, the minimum wage is a man-made construct. The original wage, and by Julius. Raising the minimum wage often results in more unemployment, so your wage would therefore be zero. Raising the minimum wage puts people out of a job who have been hired at rates in between zero and what that current minimum wage was. So if you would hire someone at $14.99 an hour, if you raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour, you were essentially putting that person out of a job, because not all jobs are created alike. For example, if you're in an internship program, you are still learning about the concepts of your job. And when I was doing my co-ops, I knew that I did not have the skills that the people who had been working there for 10, 20, 30 years had. So therefore, my work was inherently worth less than the others. So if you are telling people that it's illegal to work for anything below a minimum wage, you are disenfranchising many internships, apprenticeships, and things that have been historically been very beneficial to our society for learning and growth.
And we'll finish up this topic with the UC Power Republican.
Right, I just want to go off of that. That kind of goes back to the argument between skilled and unskilled labor. The reality is that if you raise minimum wages to $15, it's not going to lift people out of poverty. What's going to happen is they're just going to hire more people who are actually worth $15. The interesting fact is that the labor unions are one of the main kind of supporters of the minimum wage, but most of their members don't actually make minimum wage because they all have marketable skills that earn them a wage higher than that. What actually happens by their support is that it benefits their members by getting them into the market, by closing off sectors of the market and of the economy to the poor people who don't have those marketable skills.
Also, if the wages were going up anyways, then the minimum wage is keeping us down. So, I can't really understand the logic that if the wages were going to be 26, then the minimum wage was even necessary in the first place. They would have risen on their own, and they actually were. And they were actually stopped around the 60s when there were a lot of policies on that.
All right, thank you very much, debaters. From here, we're going to move into the question and answer section. We'll start off with some general questions for all the groups. So if you'd like to give your input on a particular topic, just raise your placard so I can know. So the first question we have in the Q&A session is hate speech something that should be restricted by law?
Alright, so the question is, should hate speech be
Restricted by law.
restricted by law? I think we have to decide what we're defining as hate speech. I know that's the common go-to, but I really want to know who can define what that looks like and what that is and what that means for different people. Honestly, I think people should say what they want to say. I don't really care. I don't let people get to me like that. I think that people should be educated on how their words impact people, but should people be forced because remember, all laws are enforced by a gun. To be forced by a gun, by the end of a gun, to be speaking a certain way, should words be limited to that? I don't think so. I think people should be able to say what they want to say. People should be educated on how their words impact people and how the history behind those words impact people.
I'll keep it simple. Hate speech is free speech, and before I'm taken out of context there, that is not in any way an endorsement of hate speech. I don't agree with it, and I do not personally, I don't think it's acceptable, but you cannot regulate what people say because it makes you uncomfortable.
So obviously when hate speech comes to direct threats of violence, that's obviously wrong, and that must be, action must be taken anyway. But yes, there is a reason why Illinois Nazis, are allowed to be a thing, because we do recognize that we have various forms of speech in this country, in many of which we're certainly not going to agree with and that we will strongly disagree with. But honestly, when direct threats of violence are rising out for hate speech, that's unacceptable. But in general, when it comes to especially symbolic speech such as this, it can be tolerated. And it does really depend on an informed and well-engaged society to recognize what really is and is not should be acceptable.
One of the things about hate speech being inciting violence, that's not usually what's meant by hate speech. I think everyone would agree that if I told someone to shoot someone in the room, that's inciting violence, that's not hate speech. Hate speech is generally understood as just words or like saying things that are mean to marginalized people, and that's completely fine, and that's not inciting violence. So I think you're just kind of expanding hate speech to something it's not.
Yeah, I mean, generally I agree with what's been said. I do believe that hate speech is free speech, but I also believe that there's a difference between free speech and consequence-free speech. And when you say something, you do have to expect that people are going to disagree and or take issue with what you said. For example, if someone comes and speaks on a campus, you can expect there to be protests. That is, there are two things that are linked. Both are acts of free speech. Both have their own consequences. And so you cannot expect to be the only person who practices free speech. Everyone has a right to that. So that's just my general take on that.
Yeah, I actually want to ride on with that too, that if you're saying things that are hateful, that doesn't mean that free speech doesn't mean that people don't get to respond in a hateful way to your hateful words. That if you are preaching hate and you get hate back, you shouldn't be shocked. I just want to put that out as a general info to all of you, just so you know. If you are saying hateful things to someone, if you are cursing at someone and they curse back at you, don't be shocked. If you are calling someone out of their name, if you are using racial slurs and they use one back at you, don't be shocked. Everyone has that right to speech. That's what makes us happy and love. Yeah. But that's America, baby.
Okay, for the next Q&A question, do any of the groups think that universal basic income or Andrew Yang's freedom dividend is a better solution to improving the working poor's lives than increasing the inequality?
Let's go,
Look, I think it can be a good thing from a less government perspective, but that it can be used to reduce regulations and to get into these actual the poverty programs that keep you in poverty, that don't let you save, that UBI can be good in that way, that it actually lets people save and do what they want to with them money. But it is a logistical nightmare right now. It's extremely expensive, and I'm not even sure how we implement it.
I think the UBI certainly can be effective. I mean, it does provide, at least for that notion that we call, equal opportunity, that everyone will have that basic level that will go up from there. For men, your outcome based on what you do with that money can be determined by how you choose, but I feel like it can be something that is feasible, but yeah.
What do you say?
I have problems with programs like UBI are that it comes at the expense of existing social security nets, and at YDSA we do love government programs and assistance for lower income people. So I think when people talk about UBI being implemented fragmented and everyone getting the same, it comes at the expense of those other programs that are doing so much. So for that reason, at least the way Andrew Yang has proposed it, UBI just isn't very effective for me. So.
Young Americans for Liberty.
I mean, the essential problem with the freedom dividend is that it's coming out of our taxpayer money. Essentially, they're taking away the money from us and they're giving it back, which, in my opinion, that doesn't make much sense. If people did not have to pay the amount of taxes that they currently have to pay, they would be able to invest that money and potentially make more money off of the money they already had. That was a lot of money, but you get my point.
College Republicans.
On the thing about UBI cutting away other welfare, that's a good thing. The other welfare keeps you trapped in welfare. There's policies that you can't save with a certain amount. Otherwise you lose that welfare. I understand from a social perspective why how a UBI is worse than welfare. It gives you more money than welfare does right now, and it doesn't tell you how to spend it. That's a good ultimate social policy that I don't really understand the UBI addiction.
Yeah, so UBI to me is one of those policies that sounds really great in theory until you try to implement it. So I just don't see this country ever being equipped to completely change everything that's already been established and go to a completely new form of providing basic equality. It's just, there are so many issues that come up when you try to look at how you could actually write this into existence that it seems like a talking point to me and not so much an actual potential policy point.
Alright, for the next question and answer question, what are each of your group's thoughts on the millions and sometimes billions of dollars that we send overseas to foreign countries?
I feel like it really depends to where it's going and what it's being used for. As for our relationship with Israel, we give billions of dollars to Israel every year, and there are really no strings attached to that. And as we know, Israel certainly does not always act in the ways that we are consistent with democracy and human rights, especially when it comes to dealing with Palestine. I believe that when it comes to the aid that we serve, that it needs to be going to the right places, that it, yes, does value human rights, and that it does value fair economic building among nations, and that it's used in a reasonable and responsible way, also in the stuff with the environment.
All right, I don't think we should be doing it. I think these policies need to be looked at very carefully, and especially given the types of countries and the types of overseas programs we are subsidizing and we are funding. We send money to countries like Pakistan and Yemen who hate us, who burn our images of our politicians in the streets, and who refuse to cooperate with us in any respect whatsoever. We allocate $250 million a year for the promotion of democracy in Europe, which if someone can explain to me the purpose of that program, that would be amazing. I think the amount of money we're sending overseas is ridiculous, and it needs to be cut down if not eliminated.
I think it certainly is a context-based thing. There are countries who need our support and who we should be giving our support to, as we are the richest and most powerful nation in the world. But there are countries who we are giving money to support gene change wars. We are giving, in Ukraine, we're giving literal neo-Nazis money to help overthrow their government. Like America has a weird thing with money. Like we just give it to whoever will make us more powerful for some reason. But I think if we start using our money more humanely and start supporting the world the way that it should be, we'll see the benefits for not just ourselves, but the world in general.
fact that the U.S. has sent money overseas abroad under the pretense of it being for human rights or for bettering those countries, and then all we end up doing is creating just a shit show in that country and overthrowing governments and invading those places. I mean, that should be cut, but as you said, I mean, there are good causes out there, so yeah, it's very context-based.
So the next question and answer question, what is the solution to the recent mass shootings that we've seen in this country? Is it a gun control problem or a cultural problem?
All right, we're rocking the inflows. Let's go. So I think let me pick one thing, and then as we go, I'm sure we'll be going on this one for a little bit. So let me go with this. I think that our media is sensationalizing this. I think that when you see school shootings and then you see the person's face plastered, it has this copycat effect where people see that and they want that glory. They want that feeling that they can cause fear around the country and around the world, and that their name is forever enshrined in the world, and this is a fearful person. I think if our media started focusing on victims more than they are focusing on the committer of these violent crimes, that we would see a significant drop, because it tends to follow that trend that the more that the media sensationalizes it, the more you see. So I think that would be the first place to start.
So the basis of our point is that gun rights are human rights, and how, regardless of how tragic these mass shootings are, you don't get to take rights away because bad things happen. The reality is that almost every single, not just school shooting, but mass shooting in this country happens in a gun-free zone, which sound good on paper, but in effect are just soft targets, where shooters can go and commit whatever they want to commit with zero repercussions for the 20 to 30 minutes it takes cops to show up, and when they show up, and they might not even go in. What we do need to look at, and I agree with Yael on this, is the attention we give to these shooters, plastering their names, their face all over the place. Look at some of the mental health issues that they have, some of the drugs that they're on. And I think the issue lies there much more than the guns.
So, first of all, I believe that some weapons, such as AR-15s, have no place among civilians. They just don't. Then my second issue with the topic of gun violence is the overlooked factor of self-inflicted gun violence. One of the main problems with gun violence is suicide. And mental health is often used as an excuse to take the conversation away from mass shooting problems, but we never talk about the suicide issue. And so that's why policies such as red flag laws are so important, because they've been proven to decrease the suicide rate, the gun-attributed suicide rate. And so you have a right a gun, but there also have to be regulations on that, such as if you are at risk of harming yourself or others, then there should be restrictions in place.
I just kind of want to piggyback off of what Julia said earlier. In the 2 years after 9/11, the mass media shifted its focus towards terrorism and away from mass shootings. In those 2 years, less mass shootings were committed because the copycat effect was not as strong. Since people weren't seeing as many mass shootings portrayed on the news, there wasn't the glorified effect that some admittedly psychos would get from seeing those mass shootings on the news. Additionally, the odds of being hurt by a mass shooting are very low. You're more likely to be struck by lightning or hit by a car, for example. Additionally, the number of crimes that have been committed by sharp or blunt objects were approximately 5 times the amount of gun crimes committed in the U.S. in the last few years.
Just in response to the 9/11 comment, after 9/11, we strengthened our security at airports a bajillion times, and never again has there been a plane that was hijacked by terrorists, and like that kind of destruction is completely gone. We reacted so strongly to such a. We reacted so strongly to that, and then we completely overlooked the epidemic of mass shootings that has also been taking place. And then just on the car crashes and struck by lightning comment, we do everything we can to prevent those types of deaths. Gun deaths, we can do nothing right now.
Yeah, those with being struck by lightning, that's a completely random occurrence. It's not preventable, really. And with a gun like a mass shooting, in our opinion at least, that's completely preventable with sensible gun regulation.
Well, with the 9/11 comment, as you said, it's the position for us is that gun rights are a natural right. Immigration isn't a natural right, so it's not a comparison that actually attacking what we believe. If our argument was that gun control only didn't work, then it would make sense, but that's not a position and it's not a good argument against gun rights.
And then also, if your intention is to commit a mass casualty attack, you're not going to attack an airport because you know there's security and you know you're not going to get far. The unfortunate reality is with human nature, you're not going to stop suicide and you're not going to stop murder just by banning one particular weapon. There are mass stabbings in China and the UK, specifically London, that rival our mass shootings on a massive scale.
Alright, really quickly, for the next set of questions, we're going to do one specific question that's just addressed to an individual group, and then they can respond to it. We'll really quick start off with college Republicans. So, most conservatives seem to support the government overreach of the war on drugs. How do you justify this, given that in order to ban alcohol required a constitutional amendment?
The war on drugs is a complicated issue, and our position, I know that's a pretty obvious point. With drugs like marijuana, classified as a Schedule I drug, that just, it shouldn't be the policy. I think it's nuanced with certain other drugs like maybe fentanyl or heroin. I think that when you get to that point, government has a more responsibility to act in certain capacities. But the specifics of those capacities, what we've been doing, has not been working. The more we fight it, the more they seem to come. So obviously, with drugs like marijuana, those need to be legalized, but I think government has a responsibility to combat drugs like fentanyl, like the opioids and heroin, that are destroying our communities and murdering our people.
Next question is Young Americans for Liberty. To the libertarians, raising minimum wage reduces employment. It is also the fact that current U.S. unemployment rate is 3.8%, and that is considered overemployed whenever that rate drops below 5%. Doesn't it indicate that the minimum wage is too low? I'm simply reading questions, so don't what me. Okay, I will try to summarize it to make it shorter too. So, Young Americans for Liberty, you made the argument that the minimum wage reduces employment. Whenever the unemployment rate in the U.S. drops below 5%, that is considered overemployment. With the current rate at 3.8%, doesn't that mean the minimum wage is too low?
So whoever posed this question, are you saying that you want anyone unemployed? Because that's what it sounds like. I don't know where the 5% definition of overemployment came from, but I'd say that everyone who wants a job should be able to have a job. So if we're going to raise minimum wage to decrease the number of people employed, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, the next question was for YDSA. If socialism is so great, why are all these immigrants coming to the land of free market and capitalism? Why don't they go to socialist countries like Venezuela?
So I think, well, first of all, these people are actually fleeing violence and, and authoritarian regimes. So for that reason, they're coming to the United States. The United States has a lot of socialized aspects to it. I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand because socialism is such a loaded word. It's used as a buzzword. As we were saying in the intro, if you've ever gone to public school, if you call 911, if the fire department's come to your house, if you've driven on the interstate, sat on the park bench, if you've borrowed a library book, those are all things that are provided by the government for you. Socialism is just making sure that every person in this country has access to the basic needs that they need met. And the United States already does do some of that. So that's why people are coming to our country because, we have programs that can help people. So we just want an expansion of those programs. And also I want to point out that Venezuela is going through, their government is currently an authoritarian regime. We are a democratic society and we wholeheartedly agree that all decisions made by our government should be democratic. So we're not giving power to anyone else. We're simply allowing our government to work for us instead of against us.
Last individual group question is for the UC Democrats. If you support raising the minimum wage but also support allowing immigrants to come here, doesn't that essentially force immigrants directly onto welfare since their skills would fall below the minimum wage that you desire?
Okay, first of all, there seems to be a definition. So immigrants are not necessarily immediately going to go into minimum wage jobs. A large portion of immigrants are skilled workers or students. So I mean, this doesn't necessarily always apply. So, I mean, if the majority of immigrants are looking for skilled labor, then minimum wage isn't usually the base income of these types of jobs that they're looking for. And so, I mean, I just believe that higher minimum wage is a livable wage. Livable wage is what's important in this scenario. Can you survive on what you earn? And so I think that immigrants should also be able to survive if they are on minimum wage jobs. So.
Okay, and then we'll go back to questions that are addressed to everybody. Automation and foreign labor markets increasingly threaten many paid jobs in America. How would you respond to this unprecedented rise in structural unemployment?
I think that when we're talking about automation and the encroaching death of many jobs, I think we have to have empathy there because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be proud of work of jobs they've been doing for many years. And I think what we have to start doing is figuring out how we can educate these people and get them into jobs that will still be there even when automation comes. So that may be a plumber, that may be engineering, that may be any type of work that would require an actual skilled person and that a robot cannot do. Getting people into those jobs before their job is automated completely away. I don't think it's a good idea to stop automation and stop our innovation, but it is important that we allow Americans who are going to be losing their livelihood soon due to automation, that we find a way to get them into the right careers that will save them from that timely department.
Anybody else?
Oh, I got it right.
We'll go on to the next one. Several of the groups mentioned the European countries' single-payer systems as examples that the U.S. should strive for. But given that those systems essentially survive by being supported by America's system, creating new drugs and technologies, how can they justify America copying that when there would be no system for us to live off the back of?
Can you repeat the question? That seemed a little complicated.
Yeah, I'll try to summarize it here. So many groups advocated for us mimicking European single-payer systems. Those single-payer systems produce a negligible amount of new drugs and surgery techniques compared to the United States. So what would the solution be, since the United States would not have some other country to gain those technologies from if we went single-payer?
Yeah, so I think a big misconception with single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all, is that a lot of people think that the government will be like taking over all of our medical stuff, like our hospitals and things, like it does in Great Britain, which is not at all what Medicare for all is about. Medicare for all is just about creating that, single-payer insurance plan. It's not at all about the types of, companies that are doing the research in pharmaceuticals, and it's not about, making hospitals nationalized. So I'm a little confused about the question, but that's how I would answer it, is that I think there's a misconception a little bit about what single payer is. It's just about eliminating private insurance. I hope that answers whoever's question.
Any other group have a take? Charles Republicans?
Maybe I heard you wrong, but the single payer plan in the U.S. does actually stop private companies from competing. If you look at British plan, you can't actually compete with whatever medicine they would offer. You can compete in like cosmetic things, but you can't compete in the things that you make it does. Another thing about the drugs, that's 100% right. The U.S. does come out with all of the over 80% of them prescription drugs, and other countries do taking that out.
Any other? All right. We're going to do our one final question here. Can each representative quickly name a single belief that strays away from the dogma of their respective party platform, showing that they do in fact think for themselves rather than being told what to think?
I'll repeat it one more time. We'll start off with them so that we can just go down the line here. Can each representative name a single belief that strays away from the dogma of their respective party platform to show that they think for themselves rather than are just told what to think? Props to whoever submitted that one.
Sorry, I don't know what to say because usually my beliefs come from what I read, and then it most aligns with the party, so that's how I vote. So I would have to think really hard about this to come up with like a specific issue from the party. So off the top of my head, I'm struggling to come up with something. I know there are things because I don't always agree with the Democratic Party on many topics, but on the spot, I'm struggling to come up with something.
Alright, next up.
Each person. I would probably say, at least along the lines of libertarians, when it comes to social issues, typically government has a hands-off, very approach to it, and that it's, when, social issues, it is much to your individual freedom.
This is that hard for me. I think UBI could be good. I think certain taxes can be good, like a net tax or something like that. But yeah, that's me.
I don't believe that we should be flooding the Middle East and other foreign regions with our troops, even though large subsections of our party so big.
Me personally, I already alluded to this earlier in the debate, but I do think there's some areas where government intervention is alright, like having a government option for healthcare as long as the government isn't fully in charge of healthcare, as well as some certain other things. But it's a long list.
I guess it would, I think, I don't know if libertarians talk about this a lot, I don't really know, but I think that white supremacy is an issue that America has not adequately addressed. I think that our country has never truly given the proper apology or rectification to the issue that slavery has left with the Black community. I don't think that we have done anything really to let the Black community know that they are part of America and that they are considered Americans as a race and that they are in general. So that would be my thing, that white supremacy is an issue and that our country has never adequately addressed those issues.
So I want to say I don't have an answer to this question because in general, we each have a set of ideologies that feeds into our political beliefs, that feeds into, that basically governs what we believe in each policy. I just can't answer that question. If you just have a hodgepodge of beliefs that are just random, what kind of moral backing does that have? So.
I think that this comes as a, like, people think that having just a kind of mix of political opinions shows that you're, you're well educated, you think freely, but really what that shows is that you don't have a coherent understanding of political ideologies and of political parties. A coherent ideology like liberalism, for example, or like democratic socialism, from those ideologies come to things like political parties and policies that you would agree with. There's certain moral underpinnings and moral ideas and core beliefs that we all have that inform our political opinions and that make us align with certain values over others. So for example, there's certain policies that are all tied together and that all come together into one structure. And having just a random mix of things that you believe actually shows that you're much less educated about what those things really mean and what you stand for. So that's my answer to the question.
All right, thank you. So that's the end of the debate. It's been a pleasure being able to come back to my alma mater and moderate this. And I'm going to back over to Mike.
Hey, I want to thank you guys all for coming out. Why don't we give all of our panelists one more round of applause?